All right. Good morning, everyone. I see that it's 9 o'clock, and I'm going to kick us off as we talk about hiring veterans. This is number 6 in our Talent Talk series. We've been talking about how to close the gap in a time where workers are needed to drive business success, and our unemployment rate is hovering around 3%, and the number of people working is smaller than it was a year or so ago. So, critically important that we think about all the potential populations where we could do some recruiting. And so today we're going to learn about two resources that can help organizations tap into the record number of veterans who are leaving active duty and seeking employment. So we're going to meet leaders of Indiana Workforce Development's Veteran Employment Division, James Fountain, and InVets, an Indiana nonprofit that's a public-private partnership that's all about attracting, retaining, and cultivating our state's veteran workforce. Um, I want to introduce the sponsor of our program today, and Erin Rickey is here to represent Express Employment and Specialized Recruiting Group. And I want Erin to just say a word of greeting.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Erin Rickey. I'm the Director of Specialized Recruitment for Express Employment Professionals. Thank you so much, Cindy. We appreciate partnering with the Chamber. Our Columbus office has been servicing South Central Indiana since 2014 with light industrial and administrative hiring. And many companies have turned to us, and we've seen the need in professional hiring. So we are actually rebranding this year, which is exciting for Express. We have over 800 locations. We're franchise locally owned. So we are rebranding ourselves into more of a specialized recruiting group area. We currently have 6 professional and administrative recruiters and a team of 10 on our industrial team to help support our companies in anything from engineering to skilled trades to administrative, accounting, finance, warehouse, and manufacturing, and those purple squirrels that a lot of you guys need to find. So we're happy to be here and support the Chamber and you all at any point. Thanks, Cindy.
Wonderful, thanks. Hey, I recognize that many of you might be at home, you might have a mess behind you, you might have kids coming in and out, but if you're able to turn on your camera, it is always nice to see faces. It's always nice to get a reaction from the folks who are listening to you speak. So at this point, I would like to turn this over to Wes Wood, and I think Brian Evans may also be on the call. But Wes, there he is. Yes, I recognize you, Brian. Wes Wood is the director of InVets, and Brian works very closely with employers around the state. So I'm not sure which of you is kicking us off, but I'm going to turn it over to the team from InVets.
Thanks, Cindy. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as well real quick.
And why don't you guys tell us a little bit about your backgrounds? Because I know this is a personal thing for you as well.
Sure. Brian, do you want to kick that off?
Yes. So I was born and raised in Indiana. Around 2013, I joined the Marine Corps as an infantry Marine. Took me out to California, and then I landed in DC for my final years. Stayed in DC for a couple of years after I got out of the military, worked for the federal government, met my wife in DC, and then when we were gearing up to have our first child, we decided to move back to Indiana because Indiana is a way better place to raise a family than Washington, D.C. And so I discovered InVets, reached out to Wes when I got to Indiana, and he helped me secure a position with another nonprofit called Connexus Indiana. And after working with Connexus for several months, then I joined Wes's team with InVets to connect veterans to employers.
Awesome. You worked at the White House, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Awesome.
For 2 years.
Very cool.
Yeah. So on my side, I grew up actually in southern Indiana in kind of the Evansville area. Went to college, halfway through college, decided I wanted to join the military. So right after I graduated, I went down to Fort Benning, joined the Army Infantry, did that for 5 years. Spent most of my time working with the 101st Airborne Division based out of Fort Campbell down on the Tennessee-Kentucky border. And then at the end of my 5 years, my wife and I moved up to Indianapolis so I could work on my MBA, ended up getting a job at Connexus. And that, after working there for a couple of years, was able to help kind of seed this program in vets and get it off the ground. So if it's all right, I'll go ahead and give you a quick run through of what InVets is, maybe how you can take advantage of it, who we are, what we do. At any point, please feel free to jump in, interrupt me with questions on any of the topics I'm going to talk about. All right, so first, make sure it's working. First thing I want to talk about before I dive fully into InVets is just kind of the why. Why maybe you as an employer might want to think about hiring veterans specifically, and not just out of the goodness out of your heart, giving back to people that have given to our country, but really from a business perspective, why they make sense as a key demographic on the workforce side of things. So I love this quote. At 24 years of age, a soldier on average has moved from home, family, and friends, has resided in 2 other states, has traveled the world, deployed, been promoted 4 times, bought a car and wrecked it, married and had children, has had relationship and financial problems, seen death, is responsible for dozens of soldiers, maintained millions of dollars of equipment, and gets paid less than $40,000 a year. So if you take a second and think about it, think of a 24-year-old that works for your company on average. What kind of life experience are they bringing to the table? What kind of diversity of thought are they bringing to your team? What kind of work ethic do they generally have? Now, of course, there's rock stars in any group, but statistically, people coming out of the military have a higher performance level than their peers on the civilian side, just on average. So first and foremost, just to dispel, some of the myths of the military. So a lot of people think of the military as, that's where people go after high school when they have no other options, right? It's hit or miss. It's kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel when in reality, 71% of the US population isn't even qualified to join the military. There's a huge screening criteria just to join in the first place. Just because someone wants to doesn't mean they can. And second of all, a lot of them are educated, especially nowadays. The military has put a lot of weight over these past few years in getting folks to earn industry credentials, whether they're actual degrees or certificates, before they leave the military so that they can more seamlessly transfer into the civilian workforce. So right now, out of the veterans we work with, almost half have a bachelor's degree or higher, and only 16% have only a high school diploma. So even that half that doesn't have a degree, they've got something for the most part. They've got some credential that they can take with them into civilian employment. And even if they don't, one thing that a lot of folks don't realize is that, let's say you take somebody in the military who's only been in, a year. They've done no specialized training other than the basic level, basic training, and then learning whatever their designated task, their designated role is in the military. That alone accounts for over 1,000 hours of instruction that they've received, classes they've attended, tests they've passed, standards that they've lived up to and met or exceeded the standard. And when you put that in comparison with a bachelor's degree is only 960 hours. So if you're using a bachelor's degree just to screen out people for, ability to stick with a task and pass tests, and not just for the technical skills, just graduating basic training and learning your skill set in the military meets that criteria. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of studies that have been done to compare performance rates amongst veterans compared to their civilian counterparts, their civilian peers in the workforce. So on average, a veteran has 3% higher productivity over their peers and a lower turnover rate. So that's another common myth, that there's a higher turnover rate in the military population. In general, veterans have, based on their time in the military, demonstrated that they can show up on time, they can lead, they can follow, and they've been drug tested regularly for years, most of the time. Top of that, they have the ability to operate in complex, ambiguous, and arduous environments. And they have the ability to make decisions at the lowest level that impact with strategic impact. So a lot of people think that the military is all about following orders, and it is to a certain extent, but it's kind of like manufacturing a little bit. You know, you can have a standard operating procedure. You can have the instructions, or the textbook instructions on how to do a thing, but that only works if nothing goes wrong, right? And that only works if you're given, the stereotypical situation. And in the military, I can tell you from my experience, I don't think we ever once were in a situation that was the standard situation, right? In the military, you are trained to take that initial guidance that has been put together by your higher ups and adapt it to the situation at hand, to use critical thinking, to use teamwork, leadership, to get the desired outcome with the limited resources that you're given. I think that's hugely valuable in any company. So over here on the right, we have a chart. There's actually a study that we helped put together. It was actually a lieutenant colonel from the Indiana National Guard that put together the study as part of his doctoral thesis, where he asked employers of all different industries and different sizes. He asked the team leaders, the supervisors, to rate their veteran employees as compared to the other people on their team in terms, not necessarily of technical skills, but in terms of soft skills, how they interacted, personality characteristics, that type of thing. So on this scale, it's a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being exceptional, blew everyone out of the water. 2.5 would be average. They were average amongst their whole team. All of these attributes you see, they scored higher than average. But it is helpful to see, what some of those areas were that they really exceeded versus just moderately exceeded. So where they performed really well was initiative, responsibility, teamwork, trustworthiness. And you can see the lowest one, which is still better than average, but the lowest one was communication. So this is an area that I like to talk about because there are challenges to hiring somebody directly out of the military, but I think it's well worth the investment to help somebody get through those challenges. And one of the biggest ones is communication. So the military has a very distinct communication style, right? It's very direct, it's very to the point, it's very blunt oftentimes. And it's not meant, to hurt feelings, because everyone in the military gets very immune to getting their feelings hurt. But it's very effective at getting the point across. If Brian is screwing something up on my team, if he does a poor job on an assignment I give him, in the military, I can just walk up and tell him, hey, you did a really bad job on this. You need to improve. And he's not going to get his feelings hurt. He's just going to go figure out what went wrong and improve it. As you can imagine, that doesn't necessarily work well in the civilian environment all the times. You need to use some tact often. You need to utilize emotional intelligence, that type of thing, coming into the civilian workplace, coming out of the military, and it absolutely can be achieved, but sometimes there's a bit of a learning curve. So, I'd encourage all of you, as you do recruit people coming straight out of the military, to, have a little grace, a little leniency, and know that if you do invest the time in somebody to work with them through that transition process and really fully integrate them into your corporate environment, it's well worth that investment in the long run. One of the other reasons why this demographic is so enticing is the scale of the demographic. So between 200,000 and 300,000 people leave the military every year. 49% of those are not going to return to their hometown, and they are not going to stay in the immediate vicinity of their last duty station, of the place that they exit the military from. So that means 49% are going to go to some new place, completely new. And that's 49% that we could potentially have coming to Indiana. Now, believe it or not, most of them are not thinking about Indiana. Most of them, when they think of, their top 10 places that they want to move in the country, the world is your oyster. You can go move anywhere. Usually Indiana doesn't come to the top of their mind. But most of the time, that's because they don't know about us. When I got out of the Army back in 2015, I had 4 friends that all moved to Tampa. There's no reason other than there's a beach. One of them had an uncle that lived there that was going to let them stay at his place while they figured stuff out. And within a year, 3 of the 4 left, and they went back to their hometown. They thought that would be great living by the beach. When they realized that the local economic makeup didn't support the careers they were looking for, they went and found something else. And so what we want to do with Invest, I'll get into this in a second, is make sure that as people are making these decisions, that they're considering the entire picture and make sure that Indiana is part of their considerations. So as an employer, key considerations if you do want to tackle recruiting, dipping into this 200,000 to 300,000 people that leave the military every year. One is resources. Do you have the resources to specifically target this demographic and also integrate them into your company? Do you have any veterans on your HR team that you can maybe tap into? Do you have any veterans within your company that can maybe offer some guidance on which military specialties, which job titles might translate well into the types of roles that you're looking for? Because it really does take a specific veteran recruitment strategy. One of the key barriers that many employers face when recruiting veterans is just understanding the language. If you looked at somebody's resume, now they're getting better. They've got more help now than they used to as they leave the military and creating a civilianized resume. But if I told you I was an 11 Bravo 4 qualified, I was a sniper section leader, that probably doesn't mean anything to any of you. Aside from a couple, references you could make to some movies you might have seen, you probably have no idea what that entailed on a day-to-day basis. And so it really is beneficial to have somebody on your team, even if they're not going to be the one conducting the interview or anything, at least having a veteran on your staff or a resource like us that can come in and say, okay, this is what this really means, and here's how you might be able to utilize these skill sets within your organization. And that integration is huge. So again, getting over those communication hurdles, whatever else might pop up while somebody is making the jump to the civilian work sector. It can make a huge difference if you've got somebody on your team. Again, veterans, other organizations like us can be a huge asset that can talk to that person in a language that they're used to hearing. So, if you hired Brian right out of the Marine Corps and he comes in, and tells somebody they're doing a horrible job and hurts that person's feelings, you could utilize somebody like me, either on your team or as an organization, to come in and say, hey, Brian, you're screwing up. You need to dial back your language. You need to, be cognizant of your surroundings. You need to think of a better way of saying what needs to be said. That's going to go a long way. And what we've seen in the past, unfortunately, is some employers at that first negative data point, they bail. Say, all right, this isn't working out. We tried the veteran thing, it's not working, and they bail. When in reality, Brian would be a rock star employee with just a little bit of guidance from somebody that knows, the background that he's coming from. All right, so what is InVets? So first, we are a nonprofit. So we are not state employees. We are heavily funded by and partnered with the state of Indiana, but we're not state employees. And we were created a few years ago because across the state, as I'm sure you've seen, there's somewhat of a labor shortage, right? Indiana's done a great job at growing its economic footprint. We're growing a lot of companies, we're creating a lot of jobs, but our population isn't growing as quickly as our companies are. The IDC and other groups are doing a great job of bringing more companies into the state, which, to a certain extent exacerbates that issue. So Next Level Veterans was created officially at the very beginning of 2018 to help companies reach outside Indiana's borders and connect with these veterans and military spouses across the country that might potentially be interested in coming and working here in the state of Indiana. So we break down what we do into three key phases. So InVets forms kind of the core of that Next Level Veteran strategy, and we're supplemented by a variety of state agencies that help us do what we do. But what we do is really broken down into three phases. So the first is recruitment. So whereas it would be not cost effective and honestly unrealistic for us to expect each one of your companies to go stand up a team that would travel out and connect with these veterans all across the country, we try and aggregate some of that demand. And we go out to these bases on behalf of the state of Indiana to make sure folks are thinking about us in the transition process. So, one of the conversations I had at the outset of this program, a major employer in the state of Indiana who said, yeah, we love veterans. We hire every veteran that walks in the door. We just don't get that many. Pointed out, well, you're a very small town in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. To be honest, nobody getting out of Camp Pendleton in Southern California knows you exist. They might, love the town, they might love the job, but if they don't know you're there, you're not going to get any applicants. And so you really do have to go out and have a nationwide effort, go get face-to-face with these folks. So this is exactly what we do. So we've had to augment it over this past year, just as many people have had to adjust. But traditionally, we're out at military installations, having face-to-face conversations with folks as they leave the military, trying to make sure they know about the companies we work with, that we've answered any questions they have about Indiana. Most of them think we're the frozen Arctic tundra up here. we're blanketed in snow half the year and that type of thing. And so we dispel some of those myths. So aside from just person-to-person recruiting, we also do a lot of digital marketing. So we utilize things like social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, that type of thing to reach out to folks, make sure that we're building Indiana's brand across this demographic and that of our companies. The call to action, the key thing we want a veteran to do if they're interested is utilize our website to create a profile. So we have them go to our website, upload a resume, upload content about their military background. Ultimately, what that gives us is a database of veterans that are all open to employment here in Indiana. So, instead of one of you going out and having face-to-face conversations at Camp Pendleton, you could sit right there at your desk in Indiana and see all the veterans we've talked to at Camp Pendleton that are interested in coming here and reach out to them without ever actually having to make the trip yourself. We also give employers the ability to create profiles. And this is really to, create that awareness. That company in the middle of nowhere in Indiana, it lets them put themselves on the map to this demographic that we're communicating with. Talk about who they are, what they do, where they're located, what kind of career paths they have. So, we work with companies like IU Health, where if I was a veteran getting out at Fort Campbell in 2015, I might see IU Health and think, well, not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, that's not for me. When in reality, they have a wide variety of positions. They have logistics, they have, finance, they have all sorts of positions that I might be very interested in. And these corporate profiles allow companies to really dig into that and showcase what the opportunities are for transitioning service members. Like I said, on the flip side, it allows both parties to kind of add their own criteria, search criteria, keyword searches, that type of thing, to explore opportunities or candidates that you might not otherwise be put in contact with. The last phase of this is going to be one of the biggest pieces that we're going to be developing over this year and into next year, and that's the retention. So we're trying to strengthen Indiana's veteran ecosystem. We want veterans to stay here. We don't want somebody to land a great job, to come here, love what they do, but not plug into the community. We want them to put down roots. We want them to engage with other organizations. So we're constantly building a network of other veteran-focused nonprofits throughout the state so that we can make referrals out and really make sure, veterans are much more likely to want to plug into their community than your average person coming in from out of town, and want to give back, want to be engaged. And we want to make sure that we're giving them a mechanism to do that. So how we work, kind of the next level of veterans overall, big picture. So we've got veterans coming in from one direction that, I mentioned we interact with from a variety of different angles. And we really kind of have three key pillars to this equation. We've got INVETS, I mentioned what we do, kind of focused on veterans, military spouses from outside the state, bringing them in, creating that awareness, creating that digital footprint. We also have the Indiana Department of Veteran Affairs. So right now I'm in a building in downtown Indianapolis, 777 North Meridian Street. 2 floors above me is Indiana Department of Veteran Affairs. They are responsible for, first of all, they report directly to the governor, and they're responsible for connecting veterans across the state with Indiana state benefits and resources. So we work very closely with them, make sure that the veterans we're working with are well plugged into that network. And then DWD. So I won't steal James's thunder here, but DWD traditionally works out of a lot of the work ones, that type of thing. They've got a whole staff, a whole team that James is a part of that works with veterans that are here in the state that are seeking employment. And so we work very closely with them as well. We try and be cost effective and share the workload. So any veteran that signs up with us that says, hey, yeah, you can share my information with other organizations, we share those folks with the DWD staff. We have six full-time team members on the INVET staff. We don't do a ton of in-depth case management with veterans. We try and make the connections. We try and utilize technology wherever we can to limit the amount of people we have to hire. And we use our relationships with folks like DWD to split the workload on helping individuals so we can keep our costs as low as possible. But all of us are ultimately connecting folks with employers. So you might get a referral from a veteran from James. You might get one from our team. You might get one that finds you through our website and just connects with you on their own. So far as traction goes, so I mentioned we're primarily funded by the state of Indiana. We do have a handful of employers that have voluntarily pitched in as well. It's completely free for any company to utilize our service. The only thing those funding employers get in return is, they get recognition on some of our materials that we take out to military installations. We've got over 200 employers across the state that have already signed up with this platform in all different industries, all different sizes, all throughout the state. And we've made some good traction on veteran throughput as well. So far, just this year alone, we've signed up over 980 veterans from across the country that are all interested in coming here to Indiana. And we've had 29 so far new residents come through our program this year alone. All right, so if you're ready, if you'd be interested in connecting with us, connecting to this talent pool, implementing some of these best practices, and potentially even visiting with us to installations. We take any company that wants to come with us. If we can make the logistics work, you're more than welcome to come with us to these military installations yourself. The key next step, actually, I'll let Brian, you've got 4 minutes if you want to walk them through these next couple slides.
Thanks, Wes. So if you are, as an employer, if you're interested in getting started with us, so we can get you on the website, so you'll be visible to our veteran talent group. It also helps us showcase you through our social media accounts, so we can advertise your company as well. So veterans around the country can know who you are and what you do. I will be your best friend going forward. I will help you get set up on our website, answer any questions, and I will stay connected with you until you are satisfied with hiring as many veterans as possible. So first step, go to invets.org/for-employers. You'll see the create profile. Click on that. It'll just give your contact information and the name of your company. That will come to me so I can set up a time and date that works best for you, so we can do a one-on-one, so I can share my screen and show you the functions of our website and how it works to get you on the website. Next. When we have that meeting, I will introduce you to what we call the employer portal. That portal will serve a few functions, but the main function is that company profile, so we can get you visible on the website. As you can see down below, it'll ask you for your location, logo. Header is simply an image that you see at the top there with the gentleman in the forklift. All that is just plug and chug information that will then, once it's published to the website, which I will do on the back end, it'll generate that landing page on our website that basically will mimic your existing website. And I will walk you through that whole process as we build it out. Next. So the other thing it does, it gives you access to all of the veterans in our network. So we have over 3,000 currently in the system. You'll see that first number there. That'll show you how many are actively looking for employment today. It'll give you access to all the veteran candidates' profiles. So you'll see their military work history, civilian work history, if they have it, education level, any certifications that they may have, what kind of industry they want to get into, and a section to download their resume. So you get a really good snapshot of who this person is as a potential employee. And I'm also here to answer any questions. So when you do see some of those military backgrounds and you want some further information about what that means, you can always reach out to me and I'd be happy to walk you through that. It also gives you a section to upload your job postings. We can link it to your existing website or your careers pages, so you don't have to worry about an additional hiring platform. It all links to hiring platform that you're already using. And I'll go in way more depth when we meet one-on-one.
All right. So I think we've got a minute. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know we've got Q&A at the end as well.
I do have one question for you all. In the recruiting efforts, how important is it to have amenities like a VA hospital nearby or other like assets that can be utilized by military families?
So it depends. And one thing I should have stressed earlier too is that, all the stats I gave about veterans, there's still a distribution curve. Veterans are not all the same. There's a huge diversity in the demographic overall. Some folks are really going to care about those amenities. Others are not going to care at all. Where I think you can, score some points from an employer's perspective is some So if you've got a disability rating, so I've got a 50% disability rating from the military. You'd probably never know by talking to me, being around me. I can't straighten my arm, but I can do basically most things. But because of that, I get free healthcare for life at the VA. So if you're a company that doesn't have as strong health benefits or something like that, and you're struggling to recruit people, sometimes the military can help supplement some of those benefits if you do have those amenities close by. So that's one thing I would consider.
I have one other question for you all, because I believe Greater Columbus Economic Development Corp has been a supporter of InVets, and you've got that Southeast Indiana page on the InVets website. So Columbus is, I think, pretty well positioned, at least on your site, to begin to tell its story.
Absolutely. And one of those projects that they've been supportive of from the beginning has, it'll probably come into fruition later this year, towards the end of this year, but we're building out a new portion of the website that's going to create a specific page for each county in the state that's going to help sell the specific attributes of that county, advertise employers that are local to that county, as well as share some veteran benefits, resources, that type of thing, events specific to that county. So, if I'm a veteran and I know for a fact that I'm coming to Columbus, it'll be really easy for me to identify exactly what all the resources in our network are that would be applicable to me.
That's really helpful. Does anyone else on the call have a specific question for InVets? All right, well, we might have some more discussion at the end of James' presentation, but I want to shift now to James, who is on the call, Fountain. He is our local veteran employment rep. James, will you talk to us about sort of some of these local assets and what you do here?
Yes, Cindy, thank you very much for this opportunity as well. And Wes and Brian, that was a great presentation. I want to get with you guys later on afterwards and kind of talk a little bit. I've seen this before through our conferences that we have like once a month with JVSG. Just a little background about myself. I am a Air Force retiree. I joined back in '99. Kind of traveled the world a little bit, been to many countries. My first career field was logistics, refuel planes. Then I had a little special duty as far as recruiting. That's what brought me to Columbus a few years back. Fell in love with the city after we decided we wanted to retire. We looked at Columbus as home because it was great for when our kids were younger. So let's go ahead and let them finish up. So that's why we came here. My job as far as in the Department of Workforce Development is the local veteran employment rep. So what I do is I reach out to employers and I talk to them and find out what their employment needs are. And I try to match them up with veterans that would be beneficial for both parties. We have a program here where we'll bring in disabled veterans and with the Disabled Veteran Outreach Program Manager, specialist. What they do is they work with the veterans and they try to take away whatever barriers they might have. Like say, a lot of veterans haven't done resumes before. After 20 years, I found that very difficult for me to start and do resumes because I've never had to do one. We sit them down, we help them, we have workshops that we can put them in that helps them write the resumes and get them to a level of where they're ready, work ready, whatever the barrier may be. We try to help them either with referrals to VA or to whatever organization that might be able to help them. That's what we do, that we're that little point of contact through Work One that we kind of help them get there. Once they're job ready, and then they refer the veteran to me, and I reach out to the employers like you guys and find out if you have any positions available. We kind of talk about what the advantages of employing a veteran, which Wes and Brian did a really good job, so I'm not going to go back over that. But what they do, once we get them in a position, we want to make sure that they're doing well, so we check in on them. We also check with the employers and make sure there's no issues or anything, no conflicts, and just make sure that they have a really good welcome into that new employment area. Another part of my position is I'm with the business service team, And we also reach out to employers, and what we do is we offer different grants and training grants that we can help with the employers. So if you have new employees, we have the employer training grant, which is this year opens up in July, and it's going to be up to $50,000. So what that means is you can train your new workers or your workers that are already there, and kind of add value to their workplace and get a refund for it. Basically, is what it is. You just go through the nextleveljobs.org website and kind of walk you through it, and I can be one of your point of contacts along with a couple of my coworkers that are on this briefing right now, Mickey King and Kathy Warner. Another thing we do, sorry, I'm kind of going through my notes. With the, we also have a program called the Hiring Vets Medallion, and that is the only federal award program that what it does is it kind of gives you a little bit of a honor for hiring veterans and maintaining them on your workplace. Let me kind of drop off this little slide here. All right, let's see here.
We got it.
All right, which one do you have?
It says veterans at the top, hire today's veterans, top 10 reasons.
Okay, let's see here. Sorry about that. All right, you got the Hiring Vet Medallion program?
Yes, we do.
All right, and with this program, that is, as you can see, it's the honoring investments and recruiting and employment of American Veterans Act of 2017. And basically what that program is, it's a level of getting you recognized as an employer for hiring veterans and maintaining them on your staff. And you can go to hirevets.gov to kind of get a overview and sign up for it, and to kind of show you what some of the questions you might have. I'll send this email out, this little flyer out as an email, because there's a lot of good information on it.
So it's sort of a endorsement of those companies or recognition for those companies.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cindy. And I also have the flyer here that I showed earlier. I'll kind of send that out as well. And it kind of it validates what Wes was saying, how the top 10 reasons why you want to hire veterans. You're going to get an accelerated learning curve. You have leadership. These guys are already coming out with leadership. We've been trained into us when we were in boot camp all the way up through our service time. Teamwork, diversity, inclusion. Let's see here, bring this back up. You got efficient performance, under pressure, respect for procedures. I mean, all of these are really good reasons why to hire veterans. And I know that every employer that I've worked with, they've been enthusiastic about hiring veterans. So it really makes my job easy. The only problem that we're coming to is we're looking for more veterans to help get employed. So if you have family or friends that are interested or who are looking for employment, we're here to help. We're here to help them get through the door, kind of dust up their resumes, and kind of get them ready for the workforce again. So I know with this long stint for coronavirus, a lot of people haven't really been into the workforce lately a lot, or maybe they want to go into a new career. This is the perfect opportunity for that, and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we can get them ready, and then give you a good product. As far as a good employee who's gonna work for you. I don't have. I apologize, Cindy. I don't have 20 minutes presentation today, but I really just want to kind of introduce myself and just let everybody know that I'm here in Columbus, and I work for you guys to help you find gainful employees that's going to work well with you, and also help give them something that's going to make sure that they're gainfully employed and can handle it.
Thank you, James. So I have a question both for you, James, and for Brian and Wes. And Wes kind of referred to the different job classifications in the military. And I saw something on your slide about work keys. I know there's like a coding system of skills that people have, and it isn't often clear to employers how that translates to the civilian world. Is there a resource to help employers make that translation?
Yeah, absolutely. At the Work One offices, we do offer the Work Keys assessment, and for me, the easiest way I can explain it is it's a bit of a aptitude test. You kind of see where you fit as far as in they'll test you in your math, they'll test you in your let me open that up. Actually, I would like to refer to Kathy Warner just for a quick second, because she administers the Work Keys test here, and she can tell you just a little bit about it, because I know she's had some background with that, with her educational background as well, if you don't mind, Kathy.
No, not at all. That's fine. And again, my working with Work Keys here, I started working with Work Keys. I equated a lot to the TABE, though, if you're familiar at all with the TABE testing that is done, and it's the test of adult basic education, but it's sort of a baseline, if you will. So to the Work Keys, there are multiple tests. The ones that I've been exposed to have been the math and applied technology, and there's a graphics literacy. And so what it does is, for a lot of the employers that we work with, they're looking for a certain baseline for their employees. So they come in and they do this testing. Each test is around 60 minutes or so. And they come in, it's all done online. And then we score the tests and give them the results back to take back to their employers. But it gives an employer a baseline to know if they're looking for a certain baseline, and say their math skills. If the folks don't meet it, then we can here, if they're open to it, refer them to the adult basic education, where they can go and do some brush up and get up to the level they need to be for that employer. And a lot of it can be twofold. It can be employers require this to hire an employee, or it can be an existing employee that they're looking to sort of move up in the company or move to a different level job. So yeah, but if you have any interest in Work Keys at all, please let us know. We do offer it here. It's free to the folks that come in, and we'd be happy to work with you on that.
Thank you, Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
Cindy, one thing I wanted to bring up too, and if it's all right, I'll share my screen real quick. There's another tool out here specifically to the military, or for military skill translation, called ONET Online, if anyone's not familiar with that. So onetonline.org has these crosswalks. So the first one here is a military crosswalk. You can pick a branch. So, I was Army, and you can pick that job code. So if you ever get a veteran, you can ask them what their job code was, what their MOS, the rating. There's different names depending on what branch they are. But mine was 11 Bravo, 11B. And here's all of the things that the federal government says lines up with what I did in the military. So
That's awesome.
Development specialist, emergency management director. A lot of some things you might expect, like firefighters, some things you might not, maintenance workers, machinery, millwrights, manufacturing, building, mobile home installers, that type of thing. And you can do the reverse too.
Could you also put in diesel mechanic, and it would tell you the flip side, what the code looks like?
I believe so. Let's see. Yeah, so you got avionic mechanics, 15 November, you've got a 47 Romeo, you've got, diesel electric locomotive repairman, 65 Charlie. Yeah, so it's got all sorts of information in here to help you kind of bridge that gap. Now, one thing to keep in mind as you're talking to these folks is a couple of things. One, it's something like 20% of people in the military did not actually do what their specialty was. They got trained in it, they got certified in it. In practice, they actually did something else. So keep that in the back of your mind. The other thing to think about And actually there's a grant through Ivy Tech called VALA right now that's doing a great job of trying to translate some of this stuff. But sometimes what we've seen in the past, another large employer here in Indiana does manufacturing. They hired a naval E6, so somebody about midway up the rank structure, brought him in to do maintenance type work. You know, that's what he did in the Navy. They brought him in. He's a rock star for them. Absolutely love him. His boss from the military, who'd been in 25 years, was looking to get out, and his employer passed on hiring this guy's former boss because he didn't have a certain certification, a 3-way electrical certification, which he absolutely had the skills for. He just didn't have that civilian credential. So sometimes the skills don't necessarily translate to the exact civilian equivalent credential. So that's another big barrier to these folks in getting employment. They might know exactly what you need them to know, not have the right piece of paper. And so, you know, there's programs to help translate that. Right now, you know, that's one of the things, like I said, Ivy Tech is doing, is trying to translate some of those things, but they're specifically limited to state administered certificates. They can't touch anything else. So just something to be aware of.
Interesting. Interesting. Other questions? Does anyone have a question for either Wes or Brian or James or Kathy?
One thing I wanted to add too, Cindy, one thing to keep in mind, some people leave the military. Well, first of all, looking at demographics, we get 2 big buckets of people that leave the military. We get one big group that gets out in their low to mid 20s. You know, they do 1, maybe 2 terms of service, and you know, less than 10 years of service. Then they decide to go to the civilian sector, and they've got some great soft skills, some great technical skills. But they're looking for more of an entry level position where they can really spend a lot of time with an employer and build themselves up. And then we get a second big group that get out after retirement. You know, retirement in the military is probably not what you think of as retirement in the civilian sector. Retirement in the military, you could be 38 and retire. 20 years is the minimum number of service years to retire. So they've still got plenty of years left in the civilian sector, but they've got a little bit more skills and experience they're bringing to the table. And so they're not necessarily looking for that entry level most of the time. And they shouldn't be looking for that entry level most of the time. But those 2 groups are almost equally weighted in terms of numbers that we see. You don't see very many people in the middle. Very few people get out at 18 years or 15 years if they could just hold out for another 5 years and collect retirement, right? So those are 2 key demographics to keep in mind as you're targeting the military population. And where was I going with this? So they have different goals in mind as well when you're trying to incentivize them and when you're trying to attract them. The younger group tend to be much more mobile. You know, they'll take a chance on a place they've never been. You know, they'll ride it out. You know, can move again in 3 years if it doesn't work out. Whereas the older of those 2 groups is more likely to want a place where they can stick around and they can put down some roots. But because of that, they're sometimes a little bit harder to recruit into a new geographic area. So just something to keep in mind as you're going out to recruit these 2 groups.
That's really consistent with the research we've done about talent attraction. And that 24-year-old group that you mentioned is a perfect fit for what most of our employers are looking for, that sort of fresh from college or fresh from military that they can develop throughout their career. So that's a good fit. And I was going to share with you all, we have a talent attraction website and video, and I don't know if we could plug it in to either DWD's site or the NVET's page on Southeast Indiana, but we've got a really nice video and a website. It's columbustalent.com, and it really targets that demographic. So if there's a way we could get those plugged in.
Yeah, I think we can definitely get it on the website. We could also blast it out on our social media channels as well. We've got a fairly big presence on that front. We had over 10 million impressions in the last 6 months.
Wow.
Social media. And that's nationwide.
That is a lot. All right. I want to just say a word of thanks to both James Fountain, Westwood, and Brian Evans. And thank you, Erin, for being here with us. Our sponsor, Express Employment and Specialized Recruiting Group. We've recorded this, so it will appear on our YouTube channel. So if you want to send it to someone on your team to learn more about these assets, you can do that. We've got 2 more in our series of talent talks. Tomorrow, we have Sam Jolka, who is a designer who has a research arm, Doris Research. They've interviewed employers and employees about the future of work and what the hybrid workplace needs to look like to satisfy employees and employers. And then on Thursday, Indiana InternNet will teach us about how to develop a really healthy, effective internship program. So thank you all for being with us. Come back and see us at one of these other sessions at 9 a.m. on Wednesday and 9 a.m. on Thursday. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Bye all.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.